Ready? My name is Pam Richardson from the Learning Enrichment Foundation, and I'm happy to be your facilitator today. My job is to be on the sidelines, not to be up here. So I'm just going to mention a couple of quick points. This is sort of part two of a workshop that was held this morning, just to make sure everybody's in the right place. Collaborating for Community Impact, Session 2. Innovation in co-designing and co-creating community spaces. Okay, so we're looking at developing what we're referring to as real partnerships with community and resident groups. And we have three presenters here this afternoon who are going to give us some examples of the work they've done in this area of community spaces and partnering with resident groups and community groups. So as everybody else has done today, I'm not going to actually read the whole bio because that would take up too much time. I think it's more important to hear directly from them. But I will just tell you who is on our panel this afternoon. The first person to speak is Lee Soda, and Lee is the Executive Director at Agincourt Community Services Association. And then secondly, we will have Menina Fabria. Menina's from the Toronto Region Immigrant Employment Council, otherwise known as TRIEC. And then we will have Sophie Dwan, and Sophie is the Chair and Executive Director of Mbridge Culture Integration Society for Professionals. And they can tell you maybe a little bit about their organizations before they launch into their presentation. So we'll have about, 10-15 minutes for each presentation. And then we can take some questions in between or wait till the end. It's up to everybody. So I'll start with Lee, and Lee, okay, carry on.
Good afternoon. I hope that you're all feeling ready for another afternoon of lively conversation. And so I'm Lee Soda, I'm the Executive Director at Agincourt Community Services, and AXA has been in the community serving folks since the early 70s. All of the work that we do is through the lens of community development. Really, none of the programs that we have running at any given time have been birthed or crafted from any one of our minds. We're not that smart. Really, where they come from is from the community, from the people that we serve. And that is really the most effective way of doing work. We have had the good fortune of leading the Dorset Park Community Hub over the last, I guess now 6 years. We've been in operation for 3, but it was, the seed was planted, and it took 3 years just for a shovel to get into the ground. And so now we are 3 years in running at the Dorset Park Hub. We are community-based. We are in partnership with 9 other organizations. And along with the 9 other community organizations that actually live with us, cohabitate the space, live together, and serve the community, we have a plethora of community stakeholders, of which I will proudly say that residents of the Dorset Park community are an intricate part of the work that we do every day. Agincourt Community Services has also had the good fortune to lead what is now called the Steeles Lamoureux Strengthened Partnership, which is what was birthed from the neighborhood action partnerships, which, for those of us who have been around the table long enough, we know that that was an initiative that came about from the 13 priority neighborhoods back in 06, 07, 08. Each one of the priority neighborhoods had a NAP table. Steeles Lamoureux has successfully taken that stakeholder or that organizational table and actually turned it into a resident-led table, which is in and of itself pretty darn phenomenal. And so we are very proud to trustee that program or that initiative and lead it as well. We are also the leaders of, or at the helm of the Chester Lee Community Corner, which I will also say replicates or it models our storefront model, or the storefront model, which I know has also presented here today, where we use the actual facility itself as the conduit to be able to get residents and other stakeholders in our doors to then provide programs and services for the community. So, you know, I talk about AXA and the we lead and we do. We actually stand beside. We stand beside, and a lot of the times we actually stand behind the folks that are really doing the hard work, which are the people who are invested in the communities, and that's the folks that live there. And you know, if you walk away with anything today here, guys, that come out of my mouth, it's you gotta give the people who live in the communities that you serve, you have got to give them opportunity to stand up, come forward, help them acquire the tools and the language that they need to be able to speak for themselves, to do the work themselves. That is when you and I are going to see great gains in the communities that we live in. Okay? So I provided a PowerPoint, and I always tell my students when I teach and put my teacher hat on, there's a lot of stuff up here. I encourage you, I invite you to please stop me at any point and ask questions of clarification or to expand. I'm happy to do that. So just a brief, you know, the Dorset Park Hub, it opened up in 2012. We are one of 10, including AXA, who reside in the Dorset Park Hub, and I have to again stress that the residents of the community were involved in the entire process before the shovel even hit the ground. So we were engaging community while it was still just a notion. While the concept of a hub in the Dorset Park community was just an idea at the table. And that's when we started actually engaging the residents. And it was hard because it's hard to conceptualize, but that's when we onboarded the people who live there and made them be part of the process. Who else needs to be at the table in terms of your community partners? Of course, it is always the residents, but for us, you know, nobody is not allowed in. So faith houses, you know, they are such intricate parts of our communities. They really are hubs in and of themselves. We all know that it's a gathering place for most newcomers that come to our city. They will congregate towards their faith houses and their communities, so bring them to the table. Local businesses, come on, they're potential employers, so bring them at the table as soon as you can. Your educational institutions, we've got some fantastic educational institutions in our great city. Bring them at the table. They come with resources. What I mean by resources is not necessarily financial. They got smarts. We need smarts. Bring them at the table. And some unlikely suspects, but definitely important, are your property managers from, you know, your privately owned high-rises to, of course, TCHC. In my little red note there, and very small, I wrote, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Not that we have any enemies, but everyone should be invited to the table. And then there's the community partners. I made a distinction, but really the members of our community, our residents, are partners. And when I was crafting this presentation, what I did is I went and I actually sat down with some residents who are active members in the Dorset Park community and in our Chester-Lee community. And I thought, you know, what better way for me to convey the importance of collaboration and the impact that it has in our communities? What better way for me to do that than go and ask them directly and actually use their language and their words and their quotes right in this presentation? And I've actually done that. There's a couple of slides where it's not my words, I've actually italicized them and it's their words. And I think that you'll be able to get a real sense of what impact looks like through the sounds of their words. So, you know, the things that that we have to take into consideration when we talk about collaboration is that we can't just pay lip service to that word. It actually looks like something, and it means that your partners really have to be part of decision making. It means that they have to have an active role at any of the planning tables, including the strategic planning and the visioning of where it is that you want to go. They have to be able to acquire the skills, and we're responsible for that, in doing things like writing proposals, right? If we want them to be able to stand on their own 2 feet and go from grassroots initiatives to actually stand-alone initiatives, you've got to be able to give them the tools and the resources to be able to do that on their own. They have to be active partners, and in order to do that, as organizations, as stakeholders, we have to invest in them. Here are the quotes, and I'm just going to read them as they were said to me, and just let them resonate with you for a moment, because it to me is really telling, and this to me means success. That they were able to articulate this to me when I asked them the question of, what does it mean? What does it mean to be a collaborator here at Dorset Park, or a collaborator here at Chester Lee, or at the SIP table? These are their words. Spending time to really explain things, teaching us to make connections with stakeholders in a way that doesn't make us feel stupid, giving us ongoing opportunities to learn and don't give up on us. You followed through on what you said you would do. You made me a part of really big decisions. You held me accountable like everyone else. This told me that what I had to offer mattered. You asked stakeholders and partners to speak with me directly. You didn't do it for me. You trust me to go out into the community and to stakeholders and advocate alongside with you. Agency leaders and staff believe it's everyone's job to build community. Everyone works equally hard to get the job done. This is what it sounds like when we are actually investing in the people that live in these communities. This is what you make them feel like, valued. What better job is there? Really? Any questions so far? Easy bunch.
I wanted to ask Lisa, there was a slide about residents actually have space.
Yes.
Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Absolutely. So out of the Building Strong Neighborhood Strategies with the United Way, it was determined, right at hub number 1, that the Action for Neighborhood Change Office, which is a United Way community development initiative, that the ANC offices would move right into the hubs once they were built. We actually took it a step further at the Dorset Park Community Hub, and there have since been other hubs now that also do this as well. But the residents who were very active in the process of the creation of the Dorset Park Hub, they actually came forward and said, we do important work in the community, and we actually need a space here. We need a space to come and do the work. And so they actually have an office that is, just for residents in the community. They pay rent like everybody else, and they are part of the partnership council, so part of the governance model of the hub. And really, what better way to have equal voice? And they write grants. They have been responsible for writing several resident action grants, so they were able to furnish their office, and they are like everyone else. So, we've had some conversation today about the role of the funder, And I think that certainly for us, the primary funder in this particular initiative in the Dorset Park Hub has been the United Way Toronto. And I think that they have done a superb job at really planting the seed of resident-led initiatives, and they continue to nurture those kinds of initiatives. They have made a commitment to building strong neighborhoods and have not veered away from it even in their current strategic plan, which I commend them for that. So they're putting their money where this initiative is, and a lot of other funders, like we heard downstairs in the panel discussion, are also doing the same thing. And then I find that the best thing that we can do is to hold their feet to the fire. Say what you, actually do what you say that you're going to do, and hold them accountable. Just like we expect our partners and how they expect us to be accountable, then it's our job and responsibility to do the same with them. And certainly our experience has been a good one with the United Way. And now that the model of collaboration and partnerships and collective impact, we heard it downstairs, everybody is moving towards that model of collaboration, including funders themselves. We are writing more and more applications to different funding pots where that model is being adopted. We're being expected to do those collaborations. And that's the way that it's going. I have the evidence in several of the projects that we're doing that it's an effective model. What's worked well for us in the various projects, you have to make it be a culture of your agency. It has to be embedded in the fabric of what you do, in not just some things, but in all things. The residents really play an absolute key and vital role to it. In the case of the hubs, the Action for Neighborhood Change piece was absolutely vital. We have taken it to the next level and really made that resident-focused, that community-focused, using that lens throughout all of the things that we do and all of the initiatives that we have. You have to get buy-in from all levels, including your board of directors. That sometimes could be difficult for agencies, but really it has to be embedded in all areas and all levels of your agency. And then of course the funder has to be supportive. There's problems, there's challenges. And it took us a while to come up with an actual definition of collaboration that everybody was comfortable with. Talk about aligning visions, talk about aligning your goals. This is not easy work. It is very difficult work. It takes lots of conversation. It takes lots of openness for different ideas and different ways of thinking. But if you've got that openness and you keep going back to the table, eventually you will land somewhere where everybody will decide that they can live with this. We all know, we all come from the same sector. Funding envelopes are scarce, and we have to become more creative, which is what today is all about. It's about thinking outside of the box. It's about thinking of different ways. I don't know if you were part of the panel discussion downstairs where IBM was one of the presenters. IBM, just as an example in talking about scarce resources, huge company that has a lot of resources, but they don't give out money. But I can tell you that some of the initiatives that we have partnered on with IBM have not been an exchange of a dollar, but yet they have come through with some of the most fantastic resources for our community, and you can't put a price tag on them. So, when I talk about our educational institutions or, companies like IBM where they have brain power or they have intelligence, That's also an asset for us, and it could be like money in the bank. Honestly, I'll share with you that in the summertime, IBM came with a group of female engineers, and they came with boxes of intricate robotics. So there were all sorts of pulleys and all sorts of mechanisms, I don't even know. And it was with a group of young grade 7 and 8 girls who, if you talk to them, what do you want to be? There's a lot of, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a nurse, not a whole lot of direction. And typically we know that young women do not get into math and sciences. Anyway, this project that IBM came through and had a whole series with the girls where they introduced engineering and the possibility of what is available to you. By the end of it, these young women were creating movable robots where they were actually, they created these robots and were actually able to tell these robots what to do, and it opened up their eyes to something that they didn't necessarily ever think about. That to me is a partnership worth having, and we didn't get a dime out of that, but we got professionals to come in and share their resources and their smarts and open up a world to young ladies that they wouldn't necessarily have. So fantastic partnership. So partnerships have to look different for us, guys. It's not just an exchange of money anymore. We learned lots of things. We learned that we have to be intentional. We learned that, we have to have a plan, but then I'll also tell you that plans change about 150 times before you land on the real plan. So yeah, you gotta revisit your plan. You have to create that shared definition that everybody is okay with. You have to be clear, and you have to have a vision. You have to have, those common visions that everybody can work towards together. You got to confirm the roles of everybody at the table, because that's how we move work along. And they're developing of relationships, and that's never something that stops. We are continually, forever creating new partnerships, creating new relationships in our community. New residents come and go, and you got to keep that outreach into your community ongoing all the time. Never ends. It's not finite. You got to just keep going, and you got to do regular check-ins with folks. Make sure that they're engaged. Sometimes you've got to go through a re-engagement process. Start as early as you can as well. It's not okay to bring people in midway through things, because the sooner you onboard them, the more that you're going to get them engaged. Early engagement is absolutely key. More words of wisdom. Again, I told you I went to the people that are actually invested in the Dorset Park Hub and in the various projects where they have they take ownership for. And this is, again, what they shared with me when I asked them, so what does this relationship mean to you? What does it mean for you to be part of all of this partnership, of this collaboration, of this hub? And they said that, ask me, don't tell me. Seeing my feedback and suggestions coming to fruition makes me feel invested in my community. Creating a collaborative environment means you can see it, you can hear it, you can feel it as soon as you walk in through the space. A true partnership means that all my barriers are addressed. These are from residents. Your investment in me is an investment in the community. You gave me a job. That's it. Any thoughts, any questions? Well, thank you.
Maybe what we can do is, as the afternoon goes on and the others are presenting, you can think of things that you may want to add or ask, and at the end we can kind of open up the floor for discussion. So I guess I will let Monina get her presentation ready, and then we'll carry on with the second presentation.
So I have handouts of today's presentation, just in case some of you are like me and like to take notes as it goes along. So I'm the program coordinator of a program you might have heard of called Professional Immigrant Networks. Just out of curiosity, how many have heard of it? And if you haven't, that's okay, I'm not offended. Wonderful. A couple, maybe 3 or 4 people. And so what we call the PIMS program is actually part of TRIEC, the Toronto Region Immigrant Employment Council. So for those of you who aren't aware of TRIEC, what we're a multi-stakeholder council for the Toronto region, like the organization title says. But we bring together different players in immigrant employment. So agencies like many of the ones that you're at, that you work at, government, ministries that work on immigration and employment, as well as employers and other stakeholders who are interested in supporting the work of immigrants, as well as including them in their diversity inclusion plans. So TRIEC has been around for about 10 years. We're actually entering into our 11th year. Our big program, which we might work with many of you on in the room, is the mentoring partnership. So if you're aware of that, that started as a small project at TRIEC, and through the work of our agency partners, like some of yourselves, we've been able to expand. So, for about 4 years, we've been working on this program called the Professional Immigrant Networks. And what it looks at is, we know how important it is to network, especially when trying to find employment. As great as credentials are, what you know, and the hard skills, in a place like Toronto, where it's very competitive, sometimes knowing someone within the sector or in the same industry can be so important for them to connect to meaningful employment. And so today I was thinking about what are the ways that your agencies or your work can connect with some of these professional immigrant networks that are in the Greater Toronto Region, and how can they be helpful to your clients, how can they be helpful in the work that you do, or how can they spark ideas for new collaborations. And so today I'm also joined by one of our leaders, one of the board members of one of our associations, Sophie. So I'll give you a little bit of a background, and then I'll let Sophie speak for herself, because she's been working on a great organization that some of you may know of, but some of you may not. So for the purposes of today, like I mentioned, I'll be highlighting what is the PINS program. How does this program partner with informal groups and community organizations? Highlights of some of the partnerships that we've had in the past, but also that you may have heard of, or spark some ideas for you, as well as lessons learned. Like Lee had mentioned, there's some great lessons learned, but there's also challenges, and that can really deter you from wanting to collaborate, but there are some great things to learn from them. And then I'll let Sophie speak on behalf of her association, Enbridge Culture Society, Integration for Professionals. So I just want to take a step back about 3.5, 4 years. So in 2009, a group named the Communications Advertising Marketing Professionals, an informal group of skilled immigrants in communications and advertising, were organizing with each other to help support each other through the employment search. So many of them would get together for coffee, talk about, what struggles are you experiencing? Have you found any leads? How can we help each other learn a little bit more about really getting into the Toronto labor market? And once they started getting together, they decided to apply for money from a foundation, and they actually received money to formalize this group. So they came to TRIEC and said, we'd really like some support in trying to figure out our mission, create a board of directors, and really formalize this group so that we're because it's all nonprofit, it's all volunteer-based, we'd really like to be recognized as this formal organization. Can you help? And so through our help with them, we realized this group of professionals were really helpful for people who maybe haven't connected with government-funded programs or education services, and that there was this little niche of skilled immigrants who were helping one another but not necessarily recognized. So with the money and our support, we helped them coordinate and really establish themselves. But through that process, we thought, well, they can't be the only groups in the Toronto region functioning like this. So why don't we have a little scan of what's out there before we do anything, and just kind of learn a little bit more about what work they do. So back in 2010, we brought them all together, and there was about 70 different professional immigrant groups. So they were all volunteer-based, immigrant-led. This was, on the side of their desk, so their second, third shift kind of job. But they were working with immigrants or a cultural group or a specific profession, and trying to help them either, with settlement supports, employment supports, and even sometimes it was just social, like some alumni groups just wanted to reconnect with those in the Toronto region. So we brought them together and thought, are you aware of each other? Do you know that each other exists? Because a lot of the work that you're doing is very similar. And one pain point for one group could be a very big strength for another. And there is some knowledge that could be shared throughout these various organizations. So from that consultation, a lot of the leaders there, so the people who were running these organizations, felt that this was a network of people who had such great wealth of knowledge and they wanted to stay connected. And so through TRIEC, we decided to create the Professional Immigrant Networks program. And so for the purposes of our work, because TRIEC looks at immigrant employment, all of the associations that we work with all have to have a focus on connecting their members to employment. So they're all volunteer-led. Like I mentioned, they have established board and mission and objectives, but one of the objectives must include employment. Now there's many others that exist there and do want to get together for social reasons, and that's great, but for the work that we do, we really thought that having that common thread could be really powerful. So thanks to the support of our funders, we have currently some sponsorship from Scotiabank, Citizenship and Immigration Canada, and at one point we also did have some money from the Ontario Trillium Foundation. We were really able to bring this group of different players together and build the PINS program. So what is it that we do? I've told you a lot about who these associations are, but what the work that I do at TRIEC is, our goal is to work collaboratively with these different associations and increase their capacity, so in various ways, but also, help them connect their members to employment. Essentially, all of these associations are doing great work. They know their members, they know the needs of the sector or the ethnocultural group better than we do, but we're just trying to help them get the resources and tools so that they can do their jobs better. And like I mentioned, many of them or all of them are volunteer-based, so, strategic planning isn't everybody's forte, so connecting them to a group, that can help them with the strategic planning can be a really helpful resource that one may not be able to go through on a volunteer basis. So how we do this work is we raise awareness. So something like today, I'm telling you about this great group of different associations working in Toronto, but also at immigrant fairs, career conferences, I go out or I bring some of our leaders as well to join me in talking about the work that they do, because they don't have, may not be as aware of the existence of these groups. Many of them, it's free to join. There may be some membership fees, but they'll explain what those membership fees are for. But many of them host mentoring programs, professional development, skills training, and workshops that could be very helpful to them and by people in their sector, but also people in their cultural group. Another big objective is that we foster collaboration. So like I mentioned, the pain point of one association could be the strength of another, and just bringing them together could make all the difference. We also have partner organizations, some of the organizations represented today, and they work with community agencies to help connect skilled immigrants to resume writing clinics or job search workshops. So even simple things, making those simple connections, you'd be surprised how many people aren't aware of such resources and tools, and especially in their various areas. And then we also develop leaders. So the leaders who run these great organizations, we host quarterly workshops about things from strategic planning to communications, as well as mentoring programs that they might want to consider. So giving them opportunities to learn a little bit more with experts, as well as connecting them to resources that can be very helpful in their organizations. And then lastly, as part of developing leaders, we give them opportunities to talk about immigrant employment in the media, as well as different consultations and policy forums. So I just wanted to highlight who's in our community. So right now we have about 55 different associations that is represented by over 100 different leaders who run these organizations that serve up over 30,000 skilled immigrant members in the Greater Toronto region. We also work with 70 different partner organizations. Like I mentioned, these are community agencies, employers, other stakeholders, all interested in supporting the work of our associations. And then over the past 4 years, we have an online directory on our website, networksforimmigrants.ca, which is all in your package. We've connected over 1,600 skilled immigrants to these associations simply through our website directory. And this is the directory of all the associations that we currently work with, what they do, where they're located, what kind of skills, training they offer, and all the details that could be very helpful for someone who may not have that professional network in Toronto. And then lastly, we've had over 40,000 visits to this directory, all about the associations that are affiliated with our program. So I just want to highlight some of the partnerships that we've done. There's no collaboration or partnership that is too small. It doesn't always have to be a big event or a big name that can really make a difference. And so one of the ones that came across TRIEC just by accident was the Office of the Fairness Commissioner. So many of you might be aware they're all about making sure that the access to the licensing professions here in Ontario are transparent, that they're fair, and that everyone has fair access to it. And so the Office of the Fairness Commissioner was originally interested in meeting with some internationally trained engineers. And they said, oh, TRIEC through your PINS program, do you know of any? And we said, of course, we've got 12 different groups of professional, internationally trained engineers in our PINS network. How can we connect you with them? So it started off in 2012 with a simple consultation. They just wanted to know what the experience was with engineers. But up until last week, they've continued to meet with skilled immigrants in law, skilled immigrants in physiotherapy, dentistry, pharmacy, and mental health professions. So really giving an opportunity for the members of these associations to meet with a group that speaks to regulators and share their experiences of how easy or how challenging it can really be as for someone going through that pathway. Another partnership that we've worked on and collaborated with is with JVS Toronto. So through their support and some funding from our sponsor Scotiabank, we started a group mentoring pilot program. And so what it was 7 different groups. They were ethno-specific. They came to JVS who provided a train-the-trainer model about how to do group mentoring. So one mentor for 5 mentees. And what were the challenges, what were the lessons that you want to learn, what was, they even developed a manual about what are the kind of questions that you want to talk about. How do we make sure that everybody's on the same track, but you're still able to help each other, or help each mentee follow the right path for their mentoring, wherever they want to go, whether it be licensing, further education, or just employment support. And so through JVS, we developed this program that's been replicated in 7 different of our associations, and it's connected about 160 members to the right path, either information directly to education or information about licensing, and in many cases, there's been direct linkages to employment outcomes. So we think this is a really great idea that just kind of spurred about in a small conversation back in 2011, and here it is, continuing, and even Sophie's group, Enbridge, continues to be a part of it. Like I mentioned, we've also gotten many speaking opportunities in the media and presentations like today on immigrant employment. Weekly, I share job postings with all of our PINS associations, and that's led to some really great hires at the City of Toronto, at Toronto Pan Am, the Toronto Pan Am Games in the city, and at many other smaller employers, but really just connecting, using the network, it's who you know and through what connections that you can really find successful employment outcomes. So So just for the purposes of time, I just wanted to quickly run through some lessons learned. So, like Lee mentioned, there's lots of challenges. Don't let that deter you, but one of our big challenges is, like I mentioned, these are volunteer organizations, and they're a group of great, passionate folks, but at the same time, there's other priorities like family, full-time job, and things like that, that turnover can happen. And so I can be working with a really committed group of leaders, and then their term as board of directors turns over in 2 years, and then we need a whole different group of people who may not be necessarily as interested or as passionate. So one of our challenges is really that ongoing relationship management, just keeping in touch, making sure that we know that turnover is going to happen. How do we best prepare for it and keep our records up to date so that we don't lose touch with some of these groups. Another challenge is that our community is growing. When we first started PINS, we were 40 different PINS associations and a very, very small number of partners. And over the past 4 years, it's grown to about 55, we've got 70 partners, and it continues to grow. So just making sure that everybody is up to date, but also informed, because we always do come back for evaluative purposes, for assessing, and we want everybody's opinion to contribute. And then lastly, for PINS associations, if you're thinking about working with them and really talking to them a little bit more, there can be competing priorities. Like I mentioned, they're volunteers. They have a range of priorities for the year. And so because it's volunteer, there's the lack of resources. There's lots of great ideas and potential, but what can we afford to do? What do we have enough time to do? And what do we actually have the capacity to do? However, on the flip side, we've had great success. We've got increased awareness and media attention about the existence of our PINS associations and our leaders, and they're able to speak out to the media about their different groups as well as professions. And they're becoming a recognized stakeholder group on immigrant employment. And then lastly, PINS associations, like I mentioned, they reach a whole different group of immigrants that may not come through our doors and that may not be aware of the resources that are out there. So being able to connect with them can really reach a broader pool of folks who might need support that aren't aware of our resources. So this was really just more on the left side, kind of how before PINS started, everybody was working kind of on their own, and through PINS, and what we continue to do on the right side is really trying to make those connections, bridge those different organizations closer, and to really build the capacity of these groups, but also bring in new folks who may be not aware of the work that they do, but could benefit from the knowledge and expertise within the PINS network. So for those of you who are thinking about wanting to connect with the leaders of these professional immigrant associations, you can connect your clients to professionals in their sector, promote programs and services to a new audience, like I mentioned, as well as leverage PINS leaders as experts and their connections in the field of immigrant employment. There's just some of, I don't know if any of you are part of these organizations, but there's just some partners that we currently work with. So if you are on the list and don't know about it, but would like to know a little bit more, please let me know, and I'd be happy to talk to you and your staff a little bit more about it. And then lastly, before I pass it off to Sophie, just for your association, for your clients, they can develop their professional relationships and networks, participate in the workshops, training, and opportunities that could be in line with their career goals, as well as access information from people in the sector. It's hard to know what's happening in every sector, the labor trends everywhere, so being connected to an ethno-specific or profession-specific group can be very helpful. And so, after telling you all about PINS, I'd like to pass it off to Sophie, who is the Executive Director at Enbridge, Culture Integration Society for Professionals. I'm just going to pull up here.
As a nomination, I'm representing the Enbridge.
Can everybody hear her?
One member.
Or maybe
Okay,
you can use the microphone too if you want.
it's okay, or without the microphone? To impress you at first as an Enbridge, and someone know, someone may don't know, is Enbridge is short form as Enbridge Culture Integration Society for Professionals. And Enbridge, if you want to remember the name, and you have the gas bill, right? Enbridge. You can remember. And the pronunciation pretty similar. That's true. Ambridge is the volunteer-run non-profit organization, and we founded in 2008 by a group of Chinese professional immigrants in responding the challenge in effective communication in workplace and social situation, and the understanding and really understanding and knowledge about the Canadian culture as immigrant. So we started the club to reach out to help the community. All this is on our website. And this we are. Admission is not organization. And so the goal is help the professional immigrant to integrate the Canadian society by learning the Canadian culture and especially workplace culture, and bring the language together, and for meaningful employment for professional immigrant. So what we do is we hold the seminar. We focus on the educational services instead of the informational. So there's lots of informational services out there. And so we bring the speaker, we reach out, bring speaker to us. Our speakers range all walk of life, and from the MP to taxi driver. And so we hold the seminar program and events, focus on the three categories: the Canadian workplace, social culture, and etiquette. That's the missing for immigrant. And the second is the workplace social and social communication skills. It's not beyond the language, beyond the English as a second language. It's communication. It's a tool of communicating. And third is networking, and to connect immigrants from all walks of life in Canada. And we focus on the three parts. One is the bridge. One thing I want to explain the M bridge, why we use the M. M as the multi. We want to be a bridge and to bring the immigrant to main society, to bridge the all different kind of group of the immigrants community, and bridge the culture and bridge language. So there's a gap there. We want to bridge over there to help. So bridge gap. And second is engage. Engage networking, engage professional immigrant to the Canadian society and to the people. It's most immigrant, the community, they tie up together in this group. That limit their capacity to reach out and for a greater life and the important things for employment opportunity. And the third part is very important for us is because with this community group, we connected, we related. So empower each other, encourage going through the transition of immigration and to reach their goal for coming over here for meaningful life and career. And we serve the professional immigrant, and we start from the Chinese community. Now we have all kind of the immigrant from around the world. And we have 3 locations in GTA, and in North York, Mississauga, and Markham. In North York, we are very grateful. The people come over to help us this volunteer round. And we have the North York location provided by MP of Don Valley East, Joe Daniel. And second locations in Mississauga is provided by Peel Community Hub. And third is by Markham, provided by private art school. And for us, we serve the majority of as members. Over is in terms of newcomers in 3 years, and over 3 years in Canada. Most of most of them are underemployed, and some are So as a PIN association, we joined PIN in 2011. We are one of the 50 association of PIN so far, and we are one of the earliest member of the PINs. So since joining PIN, we get the great support of the PIN's idea, and for not only networking. And one thing I want to mention is the great relatedness, the building, the PIN and Molina has done to really connect the leaders and encourage us and build a relationship. So hook us together. Very important. We need, this is a volunteer-run organization. We do need someone who does accountable. And the PIN, as a PIN member, really, has done great work. As PIN member, and we have our profile account as an organization on website, and this is a really great resources to reach out to let more people know about this organization. And we have the page, and we do have the events posting. We have the events, we can post it on the website, and people can reach out. And the PIN send out the email, not only to me, to us, right, to all the association's members, so everyone can get notice and what's going on inside the PIN associations, and that people come across to get benefit. And as a PIN leader is a leader of the organization association. As PIN leader, we do have our own profile on the website, and people can reach out. It's really something that one day I just be curious to type my name on website on this profile. So this really help us to get known as an association and not personally. Yeah. Get to know and this organization, what we provide, what we can help others to get a great life. That's our purpose. I just want to share some of the typical, Molina already shared what we can get from PIN, right? And I'll share what we achieved during the years in the PIN association. So as a leader, we got the training. The challenge, as a volunteer-run organization, the advantage is we can create the program or services to meet the member need very quickly without any constraint like the fund approval, something like that, or reporting, and that's the advantage. But disadvantage, as the resource, and the resource that's the big challenge for us. And as joint PIN, the resource is like out of blue. We have so many resources, and we have a great relationship with other PINs, the leaders. And I will talk about the collaboration. So about the training, and the training is a very high level training. And for us, like myself, if you read my profile, I didn't have any background experience doing the social service before. But by the training, but just because of the passion to help other people and the passion to build up the beauty community, and we are a part of the community, right? So this training will help us to build up the capacity to lead the organization, and to get the knowledge is how to manage it, and then membership retention and retention that funding. You mentioned the funding applications, those kind of stuff. That's really challenging for us. Not only time and knowledge and resources. So that's PIN provide the help, the service for us. I want to share some collaboration we have done by PIN support. And Ambridge initiated a project called Immigrant Talk. Immigrant Talk is a web-based storytelling project for immigrants to share their life, the dream, and their journey as immigrants to Canada. So by supporting by PIM, and PIM partnered with us to support us, and we collaborate with one of PIM association. It's called NCMP. And this is a new Canadian media professional network. So they help us produce a video. It's about a 3 minutes video about this project, and already posted on Facebook. So this for us volunteer round, and have find out the professional to pay for this production. It's big challenge, and because this kind of collaboration, we got help for that organization. Use it as a beautiful video. It's too slow. My memory is small. So another collaboration with another PIM association is called CAM. It's the CAM is a great organization and association for PIM. Is one of the initiation of the PIM project. And we collaborate with this organization to host the events. And the host events to maximize the resource of the venue, resource of the member get the benefit, both organization got benefit, and the maximum the resource of the speakers. So we invite speakers to come us to get training, and all speakers come work by their big heart to a contribution for free. So this is a really great way to maximize the resource and to get very high qualified speakers for us, the training. And as Wendy mentioned, we by King support with the GVS for us, starting with a group mentor program. So we have the all kind of the professional, and so this is the program will help us members really get into the career path to get their professional job. I really like the first lines. I really and I quoted from some other PIM member leaders. The quote is leverage PIM's relationship and impact to be connected. And that's the beauty. That's the beauty of being being a member of the PIM. So that's really make the impossible possible. Like I shared with the collaboration, and without this, be part of the organization, it's impossible for us. As the group, community group of the volunteer around the organization. So been PIM for 4 years already, and this is the summary of what we got is that we extend our members from a Chinese community to all ethnic group of the immigrant community. And the organization of the publicity and the popularity increased. And this increasing really lead our members and attendance and speakers trainer. And partnership, I mentioned partnership and collaboration. And the members, what members get from us, provided the services is to get a job or get promoted. And the last but not least is member gain the confidence and ease in that workplace. That's important for immigrants. This is my contribution, and any questions, I'm here. Thank you.
So I'd like to thank our speakers and open up the floor for comments or questions to any one of them or all three. I just had a couple of observations while you're thinking of your questions. I had a couple of observations that I'd like to share that I think are really powerful statements. In Lee's case, the presentation really, you know, she talked about standing beside or standing behind residents in the community. I think that's a really powerful concept, and I would take it even a step further to say, you know, they're in fact leading from behind, which is kind of a strange term of expression, but because you think of leaders being in front, right? But it really is that kind of pushing from behind or the supporting from behind. So that was a key part of it for me. In Menina's overview, I was struck by how she made a comment about developing leaders as spokespersons for the organization. And in a way, it related a little bit to what Lee had said earlier when she was talking to residents, that they felt empowered to be talked to directly, to be able to say, I have an opinion on this, you know, and I can speak for what the needs are in our community. And it's the same thing about developing leaders to be spokespeople for what they need or what their concerns are. And in Sophie's presentation, I was struck by the power of volunteers. I mean, it's a completely volunteer-led initiative, volunteer-led organization. It would not exist. And many of our organizations are like that, but especially in this case, it's with minimal funding, minimal support. It's carried along by the passion of its volunteers. So those were things that kind of resonated with me as I listened. So I'm going to stop talking, and I'd like to open up the floor, and if there's any questions or comments for any of the speakers, that would be great. And there's a mic up here if you want to use it. Yes?
This is directed towards Lee. Lee, I was really impressed to hear about your Dorset Park Hub having the resident office. How does that work? Is it with the ANC, or is it, because we know that these residents are volunteers, and it's, you also mentioned that they have to pay rent, and sometimes the turnaround, like, it can be an issue. So if I have to replicate something like that, I'm just wondering, how does that work?
So for in Dorset Park, there was a choice that had to be made, and the choice was that the ANC, which is funded by the United Way, has an allocated budget to do all the work that they want to do. So the residents had to come to the table to have conversations with the United Way and with the ANC team and decide how to divvy up that budget. There wasn't any more in the budget, but how are we going to divide it differently now? And because having the space allocated to them and for their work was that meaningful, was of great importance to them, then the budget had to make room for that. And so that's what we did. So that meant that the entire allocation from the United Way just had to be split differently and now include this element which was a resident office. And we just had to make room for that in the budget. Not with any more money. Let's make that clear. There was no more money. It just was divided differently now because this was an important piece of work and we had to be open to that. So we rejigged the budget to include it.
So that's an amazing idea. Like, although the money was there and it was the same money just being used in a different way, and yet it meant probably a lot to the residents to have their own space.
Yeah, you heard the quotes. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And by doing that, you know, we've invested in the residents who wear multiple hats. You know, sometimes they walk in and they're volunteers. Sometimes they walk in and they are residents, and sometimes they walk in and they are employees. And and they have to be able to manage all of these different roles. But it is our role, and we take it very seriously, that we invest in whether they are residents or volunteers, that we give them the tools to be able to keep growing. So what that has looked like over the last several years is that they have had the capacity, or they've gained the capacity, to write their own grants. And then of course we have shown them how to create their own budgets, and now they know that in their budgets they have to include rent.
I have a question in addition to that. So in terms of the resident groups, how did you identify residents who really want to get engaged? Because in where I work, we have the space and we have the interest for the support. But identifying the residents who are willing to make that commitment into building something bigger than what it is today is also another challenge that we face. So maybe if you can share some of your outreach tools into identifying and getting these residents, and also the sustainability tools that you use for this project.
Certainly. So certainly the identifying of resident leaders, it comes in different ways. I mean, the outreach to all of the work that we do is ongoing. And through the different forums that we attend, and through the different opportunities that are created, through the different functions that are available, not just made available by our agency, but by community agencies, you start to see emerging leaders. And you're always keeping your eyes and your ears open. And there are natural leaders amongst us wherever we go. And every, more often than not, these folks come to the surface, and then you sort of lightly tap them on the shoulder, and you start by having conversations, and you bring them into the fold. And sometimes they want to be engaged further and take on more and different initiatives. And sometimes they'll say, no thank you, I'm quite happy and satisfied being a member of the parent council of my child's school, and I'm not ready to take on any more. And that's fine. But for those that are willing to open other doors, then we are there to stand alongside and beside them, or lead from behind. And again, it's about offering opportunity. And opportunity will look different with every natural leader that we find. And so, is there any one prescribed method? There is not. There are many and multiple ways that we identify leaders and then move forward to encourage, right?
Thank you.
Yes, please.
I have a related question to read. With the resident group, could you please give us a few examples of the projects they're working on? That's one. And another one, do they have an informal structure? Are they registered as a co-op, or how do they apply for funding basically? Under which umbrella? And you're probably a trustee of
Yes.
all of them.
Yes. So
elaborate on that?
the second part is easier. So how are they able to go out and seek their own funds? It's under our umbrella. So we incubate, and we have created quite an intricate trusteeing system that is in place that ensures both that we manage risk, because it is a high risk. So we are able to mitigate those risks and manage them, and be able to offer these kinds of trustee opportunities. So in terms of the kinds of initiatives that our residents have embarked on and continue to exist within the communities, do you have until tomorrow? Because there are so many. There are so many in not just Dorset Park, but in so many of the other areas of the agency as well. Let me start off with one that springs to mind because they are just so incredibly active. You all know link classes, and link classes are all over the city, but they had a barrier to a lot of the women in our community. The barrier was that there was no child care or limited child care. And so it was very difficult for the women in our community to go to these linked classes because either childcare was not available, they didn't want to leave their children, there was not sufficient ties or networks within their community where they felt comfortable leaving their children, and so the linked classes became an obstacle, were a barrier. They weren't available to this particular group of women. So it took, I think, 2 or 3 of them to say, well, why can't we just get together in our living room and you know, we all have the same desire, that is to practice our English, and we don't want to leave our kids. So let's all go to each other's take turns, and we will practice our English, and we will have our children next to us, and let's just start something. Well, that small thing of 2, 3, 4 women getting together because they had a want. They wanted to learn to improve their English, and they didn't want to leave their children. And that 2, 3 women stemmed into 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, a dozen. And it was like, oh, my living room's not big enough anymore. So they ventured off to the recreation room in their building. So they went off and spoke to the person that was designated to use the room downstairs and said, can we meet downstairs, can we use? And I was like, sure, no problem. So that group of 12 became 15, became 20, and it was like, I think we have something here. And then the ANC project, the workers from the Action for Neighborhood Change got wind and started to ask some questions and offer supports, and whatever the supports were that they wanted, and conversations, and then it went from the rec room in the TCHC building to actually learning how to get permits in community centers and expand and get bigger. And then through the ANC project, again, building those relationships, they learned how to write resident action grants, so a little seed money that allowed them to actually hire a teacher that they could pay a little bit of money to and expand the program into another community. So right now there are probably 200 women who have invested in they call it the English Conversation Circle, and they've moved into 2 communities, written several resident action grants, and from that they have identified leaders amongst them, and leaders with different skills. There are the leaders amongst them that were identified that went on to get their early childhood education because they were the childminders and they had a desire to learn and get their certificate in early childhood education, which are now working. There were other leaders amongst them that were identified as having skills in sewing, and so they went on to start sewing groups and also wrote resident action grants. So those are just a couple of examples. There are so many more that include youth, they include seniors, really anyone that has emerged to come forward and say, I have an idea.
Thank you.
We have taken a little bit of extra time into our break, but if there's another question that anyone would like to ask, I think we probably have time for one more. Yes?
Yeah, I actually have literally 2 questions for
Sure.
Ian and Rich. Actually, I'm coming from YMCA Agincourt Information Center. We basically seeing a lot of new immigrants or internationally trained professionals with this country and giving them the information. So it's we really appreciate the TRIEC has this kind of initiative to get professional network, because these days we see so many potential professionals. They are not satisfied with the information just for job search workshop or resume writing. They want to connect with people who really know what they're doing and can bring their effective training, their skills and experience to whatever they want to do in the future in Toronto. So I do have a question, because I know all this kind of network is kind of volunteer-led. So I don't know whether PINS has any guidelines or something to make sure those kind of associations always working closely or have ongoing activities. Because the challenge for us is we refer them to some association. If that association is not working that much active, those people probably feel like they're disconnected, discouraged. So that's one of my questions. And the other question is, I know like all this time I'm also looking for collaborate like opportunities or like some resources from like their whole community. I just wondering from us like a community, like your service provider. So what kind of specific resource or what kind of collaboration opportunity is this kind of like you guys are professional like people are looking for, and what we can offer?
Yeah, great questions. To answer your first question about how to ensure ongoing activities, so yeah, for the associations we work with, some of them, like Sophie's group, they have an activity every 2 weeks or every week. And so I definitely know when I refer people to Enbridge that they're going to be part of a network and ongoing training. Other groups have ones that are like monthly or quarterly, simply depending on size and location. But on our website, we actually have an events calendar that has all of the events that all of our associations and partners are hosting open up to anybody. And so that's a really great tool, and I can tell you a little bit more over the break. And then in terms of what kind of resources for community agencies or service partners, it's something small, like even like space. Like Sophie was saying that all of her 3 locations are spaces donated by 3 different groups, one being an NP, one being a private institution. But also, connecting your members to just knowing about them. If there's opportunities to speak, they're a great way for them to talk about their organizations. I don't know if you want to add any other possible ways that service agencies can partner up.
The way to connect the professional immigrant they have different needs for in terms of the profession and the state of what they're doing in life, looking for a job or looking to get the professional job and something else. So connect to the different group. And for people, I'm talking about inside the team. The team we have in group, and we have the information on website, and meantime, and the team send leader email inform us what's going on inside of the team community.
Yeah, so if your organizations are hosting networking sessions, for example, opening up to leaders as well as members, because many of the leaders, like I said, they have professional jobs, they're employers as well. So they can speak on behalf of being an employer, hiring, as well as somebody who's gone through the pathway of trying to find employment in their actual profession. So there's a number of different ways. It's really up to what you guys do in your specific agencies, but we can chat a little bit more about all the little different things.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we should probably wrap up so everybody has a chance to have a bit of a break. I'd like to sincerely thank all of our presenters, Sophie, Manina, and Lee, for their really great overview of their services, and clearly the passion shows through. So I'd like everyone to give a round of applause to our speakers.